The wind howled outside the tall, glass windows of a silent penthouse that no longer felt like home. Where laughter once echoed, now only the ticking of a golden clock dared to interrupt the stillness. Nicholas Grant, one of the city's youngest self-made millionaires, stood frozen at the edge of the nursery door. His breath caught in his throat, his heart pounding against the polished buttons of his Italian suit, not from fear, but from something far more overwhelming, something he never expected to feel again. Inside the softly lit room, the woman he had hired just days ago, his new nanny, was cradling his infant son in her arms, her head bowed, her voice humming something achingly familiar. And then he saw it, she was breastfeeding his child. At first, Nicholas's world stopped. But what came next shattered the walls he'd spent months building around his grief-stricken heart. Backhand index pointing right if you believe in second chances, in the quiet power of kindness, and in the healing touch of unexpected love, then please like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us share more soul-stirring stories that matter. Nicholas hadn't always been this way. There was a time when he was the man who gave spontaneous hugs, brought surprise lunches to his wife Claire at her art studio, and painted stars on their baby's nursery ceiling with her by his side. But that man died the day Claire did. Claire's death was not just sudden, it was cruel. A routine postpartum checkup turned into a nightmarish series of complications, and within hours of giving birth to their first son, she was gone. Nicholas didn't even get to say goodbye. One moment, they were picking out lullabies, and the next, he was staring blankly at hospital walls, holding his son in his arms and feeling nothing but numbness. Grief, as Nicholas came to learn, isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's a quiet guest that never leaves. He buried himself in work, in numbers, in corporate strategies and never-ending meetings, trying desperately to distract himself from the empty crib, the untouched bottle warmers, the silence that used to be filled with Claire's gentle laughter. But a baby doesn't understand grief. A baby cries. A baby needs warmth. A baby needs a mother, or someone who could try to be one. After 4 months of rotating caregivers and sleepless nights filled with guilt, Nicholas finally caved to the advice of his sister and hired a full-time nanny. Her name was Elena. Elena arrived without a dramatic entrance. Just a soft knock, a calm smile, and a voice that didn't try to cheer him up or fill the silence with pity. She simply asked to meet the baby. She was in her late 20s, with almond-brown eyes that carried stories she never told and a calmness that made even the baby stop crying the moment she picked him up. Nicholas noticed, but said nothing. He didn't want to admit how deeply he longed for that kind of peace. Elena didn't ask questions about Claire. She didn't probe about Nicholas's absence from parenting, nor did she judge his occasional coldness. She simply did her job with compassion. She soothed the baby, sang softly in Spanish lullabies that reminded Nicholas of something lost but not forgotten. Every day, something inside him began to thaw. But he resisted it. Feelings were dangerous. He had already lost too much. Then came that rainy Thursday. Nicholas had left early for an investor's breakfast downtown. Traffic was hell, the meeting was worse, and as he sat listening to business talk he didn't care about, he felt an unusual pull, a whisper inside that told him to go home early. When he returned, he didn't expect the lights to be low or the apartment to be filled with the faint melody of Claire's favorite lullaby, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. He walked quietly through the hallway, heart hammering for reasons he couldn't name. Then he saw her. Elena. Sitting in the rocking chair Claire had chosen during her pregnancy. The baby, now 5 months old, was latched to her breast. She looked down at him with a tenderness Nicholas hadn't seen in months. Not since Claire. He should have spoken. Should have asked. Should have reacted with logic or anger or something, anything. But all he could do was stand there, paralyzed. Not because of shock or discomfort, but because it was the first time he truly saw love again. Not romantic love. Not yet. But the kind of love that sacrifices. The kind that fills the void left by death. The kind of love that says, I'll feed your child because he's hungry, and I care, even if I wasn't asked to. Elena looked up, her expression soft but unreadable. Nicholas took a step back, then another, and walked silently to his room. That night, he didn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling and thought of Claire, what she would say, how she would feel. Would she be angry? Upset? But deep down, he knew Claire would have thanked Elena herself. Claire had always believed love could be shared, even if it wasn't biological. The next morning, Nicholas finally sat down across from Elena in the kitchen. He didn't ask why. He simply said, "Thank you." Over the weeks, the walls continued to fall. Nicholas began working from home more. He started feeding his son, even changing diapers, awkwardly, clumsily, but earnestly. Elena never made it a big deal. She just smiled and said, "You're doing good." Then one evening, after a walk in the park where Nicholas had watched Elena cradle his son like he was her own, he asked her something he'd been too afraid to voice. "Why did you do it that day? Breastfeed him?" Elena hesitated, looked down at her cup of tea, and then up at him. "Because he was screaming in hunger, and nothing else worked. I was a new mother once. I lost my baby girl 2 years ago. She was only 6 months old. Feeding him, it brought back something I thought I'd never feel again. Hope." Nicholas felt the earth shift beneath him. Two broken people, grieving parents, brought together by the need to nurture a child who had lost his mother. The irony wasn't lost on him. That night, he sat by the crib long after Elena had gone to bed. He watched his son sleep and whispered promises he should have made long ago. To be present. To love. To live. Over time, something beautiful grew between Nicholas and Elena. Not forced. Not out of desperation. But organic, slow, and filled with quiet understanding. They never tried to replace what was lost, but together, they created something new. A second chance. The world still judged. Whispers floated in social circles about the millionaire and the nanny. But Nicholas didn't care. The ones who mattered knew the truth. Love, after all, doesn't come in perfect packages. Sometimes, it comes in the form of a soft-spoken woman who sings lullabies in the nursery of a grieving man's heart. Clapperboard if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that healing is possible even in the darkest corners of grief, then please like, comment, and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe to Kindness Corner so we can continue bringing you stories that matter, stories that remind us that love finds a way. Memo special request, tell us in the comments, do you believe in second chances? Have you ever witnessed kindness change someone's life? Your story might inspire someone else.